GPU news we can actually get excited about. Nvidia is releasing graphics cards. AMD has rumored releases of new graphics cards. Bad graphics cards from Nvidia, kind of normal. Controversial graphics cards from Nvidia, kind of normal. I bet you're wondering, why is all this news coming out right now? Well, it's actually because of CES, an event that's being held in Las Vegas from the January 9th to the 12th. A bunch of other tech companies, a bunch of tech companies are doing conferences, they're announcing products. One of the big things is Nvidia is actually going to be announcing their 40 series super graphics cards. The super graphics cards are kind of coming around because 40 series in general hasn't been all that appealing to a lot of people. Its value isn't really there. They've really struggled to compete with AMD in terms of value, at least this time around. And AMD isn't even trying that hard when it comes down to it. So what card is this? The RTX 4070 Super is actually going to be announced and being released when Nvidia is doing their conference. I don't exactly know what day it is. I think it's January 9th. We're also going to be seeing cards like the RTX 4080 Super, the 4070 Ti Super, and then that 4070 Super we just talked about. Now the 4070 Ti Super actually looks like the most interesting one out of the bunch, especially because its original version costed $800 and had 12 gigabytes of VRAM. So for that price, to get that little VRAM means that card does not have that much longevity to it. And the super variation of it is actually going to have 16 gigabytes. So depending on the price of this card, this might be the most interesting one. The 4070 Ti always should have had 16 gigabytes of VRAM, but at least the new one's going to be getting it. You know, that's in like stark contrast to the RTX 4080 Super. This card does not look that good. It has about the same amount of CUDA cores, which, as you know, determines most of the performance that the card itself is going to have, as well as it has the same amount of VRAM, about the same power budget. It's just like, it really isn't all that appealing, all things considered. The only thing that could change my mind on this is if it has a really aggressive price, which if it's going to be faster than the 4080, I don't think it's going to be more aggressively priced than the 4080. It just doesn't really makes sense. The 4070 Super is going to be that first card releasing. And how does that compare to the original 4070? Good bit more CUDA cores. I'll throw the exact calculation, but that's got to be getting close to 20% more CUDA cores compared to the original 4070. It has the same amount of VRAM, but the power budget for the graphics card is actually a little bit higher. So that means they are throwing more power at it. That will translate to more performance most of the time. It all depends on the price of the 4070 Super. And the reason I say that, let me check. I'm only on one monitor right now, so I just need to make sure I'm not zoomed in when I'm doing this or something. So I'm just kind of guessing. The 4070 right now had an original price of $600, and now it's down to $530 pretty consistently, though the general price is about $550 on the street right now. I honestly think the 4070 Super is probably going to have to come in around $600 to be reasonable for Nvidia. You know, anything in the range of 10 to 15% faster than the original card, then that's an okay deal. It's not going to blow you away or anything. It's not that exciting, but maybe they'll drop the price of the normal 4070 because this exists or something. I don't know. Maybe this will be an exciting card for a lot of people. The other interesting thing is AMD is actually leaked. There's been some leaks about the RX 7600 XT, not the 7600, not the 7700 XT, but the 7600 XT. This is really interesting because AMD has said this.
You've launched a 7700 and the 7800 XT.
Yes.
Is that going to complete the RDNA 3 portfolio, or is there maybe more on the horizon?
Well, the RDNA 3 portfolio is now complete.
So he says the RDNA 3 portfolio is now complete when they release the 7700 XT and the 7800 XT. But there's a little bit of nuance in his words here, because honestly, what that could mean is that they aren't making any new chips. And the 7600 XT might be an overclocked or an underclocked other chip, or it's cut down or something like that, especially given the pricing. The 7600 non-XT right now is going for $260 brand new. And then AMD's next card up in the stack, the 7700 XT, is going for $420 brand new right now. Pretty large gap from $260 to $420. That's a $160 gap. Definitely a graphics card could definitely fit in there. No question about it. Well, AMD really can't rely on their older cards like these 6700 XT, $300, or these 6750 XT to fill this gap anymore. They're not going to be relying on their last generation parts in order to do that. So it doesn't surprise me that the 7600 XT could be existing. What would be on this card? The most interesting thing that I saw in this WCCF Tech article may have 16 gigabytes of VRAM. So a card that might cost around $300 to $350 from AMD might have 16 gigabytes of VRAM. This isn't going to be like a 7800 XT where it has a 256-bit bus or anything like that. It means in total bit bus width of the memory, it's 128-bit. This is actually a lot like the RTX 4060 Ti 16 gigabyte. I had a lot of complaints about this card costing, $500 at launch and only having a 128-bit memory bus. But this is what would be interesting is that's probably what AMD is going to be doing here. They're actually taking these chips and then basically gluing another memory chip on the back of the graphics card to double the capacity. I'm not really too upset with this. You get a ton of VRAM for a cheaper price, but the memory isn't as fast. I'd rather have more memory than it be an 8 gigabyte card. That's pretty cool to see. That'd be a nice upgrade over the 7600, only having 8 gigabytes. It would give the card more longevity, even if it isn't significantly faster in the grand scheme of things. The cores are probably going to be between the 7600 at 2048 and between the 7700 XT at 3456. This information is actually coming from a publishing listing asking you for copyright from different AIB board partners, asking for a copyright call for the names of the cards themselves. But we've actually seen rumors of a 7700 non-XT and a 7800 non-XT. There really isn't anything out there about these cards. These cards, when these companies do filings to get the names for the cards, they could be securing something that might happen in the future, but is not guaranteed. But they just want to make sure, why they're doing this, that they have these bases covered for the future. So these aren't exactly guaranteed, but there's been multiple 7600 XT rumors, so it's starting to look pretty convincing that it's going to be the case there. But the 7800, if this does become a thing, I'd be interesting. For one, where is this going to slot into the pricing structure? There's a gap of about $100 between the 7700 XT and the 7800 XT as of this current moment. It's literally $100. And also, if you look at the last generation 6800 non-XT, you can see that this card has 3840 cores. You can see that the 7800 XT from the current generation has 3840 cores as well. That generation on generation, that the 7800 XT is actually generationally replacing the 6800. So this card already should have been the 7800 non-XT. That's why I'm not sure if these cards are going to end up existing in this grand scheme of thing, because what is this card going to perform just like a 6800? If you actually look at the performance charts here, the 7800 XT performed really similar to the 6800 XT, and the 6800 is not that far behind it. I know these aren't perfect performance charts or anything like that from Tech Power up here. That's just a really quick rough estimation of what these cards could perform like. How is this going to stack up in the long term? I don't think this 7800 is going to exist unless it's going to perform almost exactly the same as the 6800. And that's not going to be an exciting graphics card unless it's like really cheap. We've actually seen these 6800 go as low as under $400 before. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a very compelling card. I don't think they should really make that. Just like how Nvidia really shouldn't make this card, the RTX 3050 6 gigabyte graphics card. So the RTX 3050, I feel bad for you if you own one of these, but I mean, it is what it is when all things considered. The RTX 3050 to this day still costs about $220 to $230. And there's just a lot better options at this price point, like the RX 6600 coming in at $190, and even the RX 6650 XT coming out around $250. We've seen this card go as low as $220 pretty consistently. If you look at the performance of the 3050, these cards absolutely stomp it. So here's the RX 6600 at 26% faster. Intel's Arc A580 at 21% faster than the 3050, and this card goes for $180. The 6650 XT all the way up here at 57% faster than the 3050. So Nvidia's 8GB RTX 3050 was already a very bad deal at its price point. This is what we're looking at, is Nvidia is going to be launching a 6GB version of this card, which means it's going to be significantly cut down, be significantly slower than the original card, 25% slower, just in terms of CUDA cores right here. It's going to be cut down on its memory. So we're looking at a card that it's going to be probably in the range of about 30% slower than the RTX 3050. Now this all could be saved if the RTX 3050 6GB costs like $150. Will that happen? I don't think so, but I guess it's possible. So this card, according to rumors, is supposed to be launching in February of 2024, so not that far away. It'll be pretty interesting to see where this does end up in the long term, but it's probably going to be a bad card. Maybe I'll buy one just to check it out to see how bad it is for you guys. In terms of other things, Nvidia is also in a controversial situation with China. A lot of you guys know that the RTX 4090 prices have actually been going up in the US. That's because there has been a ban in the US of sending RTX 4090s. And the 4090 is just so fast at computing AI that the US government doesn't like that. So basically they limited the sales restrictions in China, and basically what Nvidia did is took all the 4090s that are in the US that are being produced and just, well, actually around the world, and sent them all to China. So the prices of these cards really skyrocketed in the US, way above their MSRP. The RTX 4090D is actually releasing, this is the 4090 Dragon. It has reduced cores for China, but has similar gaming performance. So maybe the clocks are a little bit higher. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure how this is going to go in the long term, because the government held a conference, I think, regarding import-export restrictions or something. I forget exactly what it was, but somebody, the US Commerce Secretary, Gina Raimondo? Just listen to what Gamers Nexus says here.
There are CEOs of chip companies in this audience who were a little cranky with me when I did that because you're losing revenue. That, by the way, is what you would call shots fired. It's a technical term. Quote continues, such is life. Protecting our national security matters more than short-term revenue, end quote.
So basically what happens is Nvidia actually released this 4090D graphics card complying with what the US said for, what they can sell in China, made a card that complied with it. But Nvidia, or the government, obviously sees that Nvidia is doing this, and they want to, restrict them being able to do that. And basically what the government said is that they can do that again. They can make the clasp tighter and make it more difficult for Nvidia to release cards there, because Nvidia is really focused on getting their profit margins up, making money as a public company and all that stuff. But the government is concerned about national security, and we don't trust whatever people in China or whatever are going to be using those graphics cards for. The government might just do it again. So we might see just like this constant state of 4090s just being like in a terrible state. But yeah, this has been a problem ever since it released with the RTX 40 series, is the 12 VH power connector. I have never used one of these, but yeah, we all saw these videos, right?
And all the smoke that's pouring out of it. And that one that you just saw was actually...
It's like if you plugged the cable in slightly incorrectly or something like that, then it could just start melting, smoking, possibly explode. It's obviously a fire hazard though. Recall, where they're taking back the 12 VH power connectors that they released recently because they were failing, and they told people to stop using them immediately. Now, if you do have a cable mod power connector, version 1.0 and 1.1, yeah, apparently they're dangerous. I don't know if they're a burning cable mod at this moment. Get a recall for it. They should fix your cable and probably give you another one later on. You can see that also Nvidia has also adjusted the schematics for the 12 VHP power connector. Yeah, it has a lot of issues. It's trying to deliver 600 watts through 12 little cables. It's a very tiny connector. It just seems like there's prone to a lot of issues. I don't know really what's wrong with 8-pin power connectors. I guess 8-pin power connectors are bulky and more complicated for the average person to understand. So I guess I could see that, but overall the 12 VHP power connector, until they can get it right, more dangerous than the 8-pin power connectors. So I'm not exactly sure. Valve unveils best performing Steam games in 2023. This is WCCF Tech article. Let me know what you guys' favorite games were this year. I just want to look at this list. So this is based on revenue. Number 1 was Counter-Strike 2. Doesn't surprise me. Starfield, Sons of the Forest. That's an interesting one to make out there. Cyberpunk 2077, PUBG, Hogwarts Legacy. Baldur's Gate 3 is a little bit down here. It's probably because it's a box price game, which is actually what a lot of people want, interestingly enough. Destiny 2, Apex Legends, Call of Duty, Dota 2. Resident Evil 4 is right up on there. It got a lot of sales. Remnant 2 got a lot of sales. I'm glad people are enjoying that game. It's a really fun game. Street Fighter 6 has done really well. Payday 3, EA. Star Wars Jedi Survivor, even though it was a bad PC port, actually a bad optimized game in general, is bad on consoles too. My top games of this year was actually playing Risk of Rain 2 a lot of the time, and I played a lot of Overwatch, but that's on Battle.net. Last thing I want to end this on is at CES, it looks like we're going to have a monitor that is going to be unveiled. I think this is really interesting. So a 32-inch 4K OLED gaming monitor. That's 240 hertz. So yeah, all those specs, it's probably going to cost a lot of money. CES is going to be in January, but at this event, the Nvidia is going to be announcing their RTX 40 series super graphics cards, and the 4070 itself is going to be releasing somewhere around the actual date. AMD has rumors of a 7600 XT. This will be interesting. 16 gigabytes of graphics cards of memory at a decent price point. I think that should be really good. Also, rumors of a 7700 non-XT and a 7800 non-XT. Nvidia's RTX 3050 6GB card, which is probably going to be garbage unless it costs really cheap. 4090 Dragon is having issues in China again, as the US government is probably going to be putting on more restrictions to these cards. That might take a little bit to go through, and Nvidia maybe bought themselves some time by making the 4090 Dragon, but who really knows. The 12 VHP power connector continues to have problems, which just screams to me that this thing is probably not ready to be released to the public on mainstream graphics cards. The best games of the year, let me know what you think on that, as well as a new gaming monitor that's coming out in 2023. That is basically a wrap for the year. Obviously, as you can see in the background, I'm at an Airbnb right now. I'm actually visiting family. So hopefully you guys were able to visit family, spend time with each other for the holiday season. I'm going to be uploading this maybe on New Year's. I don't exactly know. This has been a crazy year, and I just wanted to say thank you guys for everything. If you want to join the community, there's a Discord server in the description. Hope you guys had a great year. I know I did. All right, see ya. Peace.